am facing terminal cancer and my time is running out. Pay attention, have you heard of Project AURORA? They advertised it as a supersonic plane in the 80s, but that was just a facade. I was there. I saw what they were really hiding at that base in Nevada. It wasn't a plane. It was something much more dangerous. A device capable of performing feats beyond human comprehension. I kept this secret all my life, but now, on the verge of death, I no longer care about the consequences. I need to reveal the truth. My name is Thomas Igor. I was born and raised in California and spent most of my life there. In 1968, I entered the California Institute of Technology to study aeronautical engineering. It was a time of great excitement with the space race at its height and technology advancing rapidly. I graduated in the late 70s, determined to contribute to something great, something that would change the world. I never imagined that this chance would come from an unexpected call in the early 1980s, when an enigmatic general contacted me. He didn't give details, just said they needed me for a crucial position at a secret base in Nevada. Without much questioning, I accepted the offer. I received a plane ticket and within days, I was flying to the Nevada desert, a bleak and isolated place. Upon landing, I was greeted by a jeep that took me directly to the base. I remember looking out the window at the desert landscape, wondering what I was getting myself into. It was only when passing through the first checkpoints and seeing the facilities that I realized where I was. Area 51, the place most shrouded in mystery and conspiracy theories in the world. Initially, I was assigned aircraft repair and maintenance tasks, routine and almost monotonous work, but something about that base felt out of place. There were areas I had no access to, seemingly more guarded than others, and over time I began to suspect that something else was being hidden, something that should never be revealed. I was received by General George W. Moordock, a serious man in his 60s, whose face, marked by years of service, showed no emotion. He invited me into his office, an austere environment where one could feel a thick atmosphere of authority. "Welcome, Igor," he said in a deep voice. "We have an important job for you here. It's not just repairs. What we do on this base is crucial to national security," he continued, before putting me in charge of maintaining 2 F-Eagle jets and urgent repairs to a pair of F-16 Fighting Falcons. I nodded without hesitation, knowing this was no time for questions. I threw myself into the tasks immediately, focusing on every detail as if my life depended on it. As the days passed, I became familiar with the base, a vast place full of secrets hidden in plain sight. I saw old, worn-out aircraft in forgotten corners, machines that seemed from another era. One afternoon, while inspecting a broken-down plane in the workshop, something under the left wing caught my eye, a small object flashing intermittently. Curious, I approached it to examine it. It was strange, definitely out of place. I reached out and touched the object, which immediately turned off and a wave of heat ran through my finger. I instinctively shook my hand due to the pain, but the discomfort disappeared as quickly as it came. When I looked again, the object was no longer there, just a small hole where something seemed to have been ripped out. Confused, I tried to ignore the discomfort that invaded me and continued my work, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen and felt. As I swept the floor, a spark appeared behind me. I quickly turned around, but there was nothing there. Then a figure appeared out of nowhere. A man of about 30 stood in front of me. "My name is Morgan," he said, in a voice that seemed to slur each word. I greeted him, although something about him made me nervous. His empty, dazed eyes, as if they had seen more than a man should, disconcerted me. His accent was almost unintelligible, an English that sounded strange to my ears. The story I'm going to tell happened when I was almost at the end of my life, facing terminal cancer. Listen carefully. Have you ever heard of Project AURORA? In the 80s, they talked about it as a supersonic plane, but that was just a smokescreen. I was there. I saw what they were really hiding in that secret base in Nevada. It wasn't a plane. It was something much more threatening, a device capable of performing unimaginable feats. I've kept this secret my entire life, but now that I have nothing left to lose, I feel the need to reveal the truth before I leave. My name is Thomas Igor, born and raised in California, where I spent most of my life. In 1968, I entered the California Institute of Technology to study aeronautical engineering, at a time when the space race and technological advancement marked everyday life. I graduated in the late 70s, convinced that I would contribute to something monumental, something that would truly change the world. I had no idea that this opportunity would arise from an unexpected call in the early 1980s, from a mysterious general who contacted me without giving many details, just saying that they needed me for a crucial position at a secret base in Nevada. I accepted the offer without asking too many questions, received a plane ticket, and was soon flying to the Nevada desert, a lonely and desolate place. As soon as I arrived, a jeep took me directly to the base. As I looked out the window at the barren landscape, I wondered what I was getting myself into. It was only when passing through the first security checks and seeing the facilities that I understood where I was. Area 51, a place surrounded by more mysteries and conspiracy theories than any other in the world. At first, I was assigned to do aircraft repairs and maintenance, routine and almost tedious tasks, but something about that base didn't feel right. There were areas that I couldn't access, areas that were more guarded than others, and over time, I began to suspect that they were hiding something much more serious, something that should never be exposed to the world. I was received by General George W. Moordock, a serious-looking man in his 60s whose weathered face showed no emotion. He took me to his office, an austere space where authority was palpable. "Welcome, Igor," he said in a deep voice. "The work here is not just about repairs. What we do at this base is vital to national security." He informed me before assigning me to take care of the maintenance of 2 F-Eagle jets and urgent repairs to some F-16 Fighting Falcons. I nodded without hesitation, knowing that this was not the time for questions. I threw myself into tasks immediately with meticulous focus, as if my life depended on it. Over the next few days, I became familiar with the base, a vast place full of secrets hidden in plain sight. I saw old, worn-out aircraft in some corners, machines that seemed from another era. One day, while inspecting a damaged plane, something under the left wing caught my attention, a small object that blinked intermittently. Curious, I approached it to examine it. It was strange, clearly out of place. Without thinking, I touched the object, which immediately went out and a wave of heat ran through my finger. Instinctively, I shook my hand away from the pain, but the discomfort disappeared as quickly as it came. When I looked again, the object was no longer there. All that was left was a hole where something had been ripped out. Confused, I tried to forget the discomfort I felt and continued my work. However, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen and felt. As I swept the floor, a spark appeared behind me. I quickly turned around, but there was nothing. Then, a figure appeared out of nowhere. A man of about 30 was in front of me. "My name is Morgan," he said in a drawling voice. I greeted him, although something about him made me nervous. His empty, lost eyes, as if they had seen more than a man should, disconcerted me. His accent was almost unintelligible, a strange English that could barely be understood. As I examined the strange artifact I had touched earlier, I felt a sharp pain in the finger I had used to touch the object, as if something was burning beneath the skin. It was a feeling I couldn't ignore. A few days later, I was sitting at my desk, waiting for lunchtime. I looked at the clock. It was 12:15 in the afternoon. I got up to go to the cafeteria, but as I left the office, a dull buzzing filled my ears, paralyzing me. I couldn't hear the noise of the workers on the base. I looked around, but there was no one. The place was deserted, but the buzzing noise persisted. Suddenly, I saw Morgan standing in front of me again. This time, his appearance was different, much more deteriorated. It looked worn, as if time and something else had consumed it. My heart raced. "Who are you, really?" I asked, my voice shaking. Morgan looked at me with those empty eyes and said, "It is not necessary for you to know yet, but you must follow me, Thomas Joe Igor." Hearing my full name said by him left me cold. "How do you know my name?" I asked, my mind spinning for an explanation. "There's no time for that," Morgan replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. Despite the fear I felt, I followed him. Morgan guided me again to the same chamber I had seen before. We passed the glowing artifact, and this time it stopped in front of another door at the back of the room. He placed his palm on a panel, and the door opened, revealing a room full of glass cases. Inside these showcases were objects that defied all logic, things that I could neither understand nor describe with precision. Each of these artifacts radiated a sense of power and danger. Morgan began pointing to some of the display cases. "That's a laser capable of disintegrating anything. That's a watch that refracts light in such a way that it makes its wearer nearly invisible. And that over there," he said, pointing to a small triangular object, "is an interstellar transporter. It's what I need." Before I could respond, I interrupted him. "Wait, who are you really?" Morgan turned to me, his face as expressionless as ever. I am not human. I am an alien from Arcturus in the constellation Botas. My real name is Cedar Artis. I have been trapped on your planet since 1947. When your race shot down my ship, I felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. Why are you talking to me? There are a lot of people on this base. Morgan, or rather Cider Artis, responded calmly. I connected with you because you were the one who touched the communicator I launched. It's embedded in one of the ships that attacked my ship. Suddenly everything made sense. I remembered touching that strange object on the plane. What do you want from me? I asked, feeling my world rock. I need you to help me obtain this object so I can return to my planet. I have been trapped here since 1947. I looked at him, surprised and terrified. How am I supposed to do that? This place is guarded at all times. Cider Artis showed a slight smile. I can help you with that myself. In the blink of an eye, I found myself back in my office, sitting on the chair, in a cold sweat. I looked at the clock. It still read 12:15 p.m. My mind tried to process what had happened, but the terror I felt paralyzed me. I didn't go to lunch that day. I stayed in the office shivering until the afternoon disappeared. It was 7:30 p.m., and I was still in the office, unable to move. Fear had paralyzed me, and every time I thought about what I had seen, a cold sweat ran down my spine. He hadn't been out since noon, hadn't even tried to work. I just sat there, my mind spinning in circles of terror. The manager, worried about my absence, finally called General Murdoch. It wasn't long before I heard firm, purposeful footsteps approaching down the hall. Suddenly, my office door opened with a sharp slam. There was Murdoch looking at me with a mixture of irritation and curiosity. What's the matter, Igor? Why haven't you worked since noon? He demanded, his tone leaving no room for apology. I looked at him, sweating and shaking, and before I could control myself, the words came out of my mouth. So, you have weapons and objects of extraterrestrial origin here, huh? The general remained silent, his eyes fixed on mine, trying to figure out if I had lost my mind or if I was telling the truth. Finally, Murdoch responded with one word, filled with incredulity. What? Without further ado, he snapped his fingers and ordered Commander Fitzgerald to be brought in. 2 military guards soon entered the room, escorting the commander, a man I barely knew by sight. Without giving me time to react, the guards grabbed me, and one of them hit me hard on the head, making me lose consciousness. When I came to, I found myself tied up in a small room surrounded by more than 10 military guards. Beside me, another man screamed, demanding to be released. My head hurt terribly, and confusion enveloped me like a thick fog. Then the door opened and General Murdoch entered with firm steps, addressing Commander Fitzgerald directly with a look that brimmed with contained anger. How dare you talk about something classified with anyone? You have violated all the rules imposed by this base. The commander, pale and clearly frightened, vehemently denied. I didn't say anything. I don't know this man. I don't know what you're talking about. But Murdoch wasn't about to listen to excuses. With a gesture, he ordered, and one of the military guards, without hesitation, drew his gun and shot the commander. The shot echoed through the small room, and Fitzgerald fell to the floor, his body limp and bloody. The scream that escaped my throat was uncontrollable, a mixture of pure terror and horror. I had never witnessed anything like this, and my mind resisted accepting the reality before my eyes. I remained motionless, unable to utter a word, while my heart beat uncontrollably. General Murdoch approached me, his face now serene, almost compassionate. I'm sorry, Mr. Engineer, but it seems like you've been told too much. I'm sorry this has to be this way, but what else can I do? The guard who had shot the commander now turned his gun on me, ready to carry out the order. It was then that I screamed with all my might. Wait! Murdoch raised his hand, stopping the guard from shooting. Speak, he ordered, looking at me intensely. I'm sorry you had to kill your commander, but he didn't tell me anything. I saw everything myself. Morgan, or whatever his real name is, showed me these weapons. His real name is Cider Artis, and he says he is an alien. He told me all about these weapons and how they work. I saw how he opened the Boveda with just the palm of his hand. Everything that happened, everything I saw, I didn't understand, but I saw it. General Murdoch watched me closely, processing my words. His eyes, once cold and calculating, now displayed a flicker of interest mixed with dark suspicion. What I had said seemed to have touched a sensitive chord, one that Murdoch hadn't expected to be revealed so easily. He watched me in silence for a few moments, his calculating eyes weighing my words. Finally, he turned to the guard who was still pointing the gun at me. "Lower the weapon," he ordered. "Don't shoot yet." I felt like I had a narrow escape, but I knew I wasn't out of the woods yet. Murdoch approached, his piercing gaze fixed on mine. "Let's assume you're telling the truth," he said, with a tone that left no room for joking. "Describe this cider artist to me." I did the best I could to describe what I had seen. A human-looking man, but with a strange deterioration, and the words he spoke, revealing his true origin. "He said his ship has been sitting about 2 kilometers from here since 1947, I added, my voice shaking. Murdoch raised his radio and gave a dry order. "Sweep the perimeter of the base for a 2-mile radius, look for any anomalies." Then he turned to me, his eyes hard. "If you're lying, I'll kill you right here. You only have 10 minutes. Time passed in an agonizing manner, broken only by the occasional crackle of the radio. Finally, after 8 minutes that seemed like an eternity, the radio came on. "We found something, sir." Murdoch left the room quickly, taking me with him. The guards escorted us to the outskirts of the base about 2 kilometers away. There, partially buried beneath the earth and surrounded by the corpses of soldiers, was an alien ship. Its shape was similar to reports of the 1947 Roswell incident, but seeing it in person was something completely different. The air was filled with reverent silence as Murdoch inspected the ship and the bodies. Among the corpses, I distinguished the figure of Cider Artis, the supposed extraterrestrial. His tall, disproportionate body lay lifeless on the sand. A necklace around his neck gave off a faint glow, a familiar flash that reminded me of the object he had touched on the plane. Impressed by the veracity of my report, General Murdoch turned to me. "Igor," he said with a tone that indicated he was making a conscious effort to remain calm due to what had been discovered, "I will offer you a higher position in this base. Your knowledge is valuable." But I shook my head, too terrified by what I had seen. "No, General, I don't want any of that. I want to leave. I don't want to know anything else." Murdoch nodded slowly. "I understand, but before you go, there is something you must do." He handed me a document with the title in bold, "AURORA Project. Sign this. It's a confidentiality agreement. If you speak of what you saw here, you and everyone you know will die." Out of options, I took the pen and signed. I knew that my life, as I knew it, was over at that moment. Years passed, and the weight of what I had seen never left me. I lived in constant fear that one day the secret I kept would reach me. But when skin cancer began to consume my body, I knew I no longer cared. At 78 years old, with death approaching, I decided it was time to tell the world what really happened on that base, about Cider Artis, about Project Aurora, and about the things that should never have existed on our planet. And now, as I feel the life slipping away from me, I leave this confession as one last act of rebellion. What I saw on that base must be known, even if it means my life ultimately ends because of it. Feeling the weight of the years and the truth I was carrying, I decided that I could not leave this world without exposing the dark reality I had discovered. The decision to reveal the secrets of the base and the Aurora project did not come without a great emotional cost. I knew that by doing this, I would be putting my own life in danger, as well as those of those dear to me. However, the urgency of the truth overcame my own fear. It could not allow such secrets to remain hidden, especially considering the power and destructive potential of the technologies and entities involved. My first action was to ensure my story was heard and preserved. Knowing that technology could both help and hinder, I decided to record a video detailing everything I knew. I described the alien ship, the death of Cider Artis, and the experiments and weapons that had been developed in secret. I explained how these discoveries not only challenged our understanding of physics, but also posed a serious risk to humanity if they fell into the wrong hands. After recording the video, I made several copies and sent them to trusted contacts in different parts of the world. I chose investigative journalists, government transparency activists, and former colleagues who I knew shared my sense of justice and moral duty. It was essential that the message was spread across multiple fronts to prevent it from being quickly suppressed. Each envelope contained a copy of the video, an explanatory letter, and instructions to ensure the information would be made public if anything happened to me. With the copies safe and distributed, the next step was to find a safe place to live out my final days. I knew that surveillance over me would be intensified as soon as the first sign of my betrayal was discovered. I moved to a small cabin in an isolated region where tracking technology would be less effective. The location was surrounded by dense forests and had limited access, which gave me a strategic advantage and some psychological comfort. As I adjusted to my new reality, memories of what I had seen at the base often haunted me. Cider Artis's face, the coldness of the guards, the deafening sound of the shot that took Commander Fitzgerald's life. All these details swirled in my mind, reinforcing the need to have made my decision. Despite the isolation, I maintained contact with the outside world through a satellite phone that I used sporadically to update my contacts and confirm that I was still safe. One night, as I was looking at the stars, reflecting on the vastness of the universe and the small role we each play in it, the phone rang. It was one of the journalists to whom he had sent the package. He confirmed that he had received the video and was working with an international team to verify and publicize the story in a series of investigative reports. The news that my message was being taken seriously brought a mixture of relief and anxiety. I knew that from that moment on, things would start to accelerate. In the following days, I remained alert, always watching for any sign of strange movement in the forest or on the approaches to my cabin. Every sound of the wind, every breaking of a branch, could be someone coming towards me. However, I was determined to face whatever came, armed not only with a clear conscience, but with the truth on my side. The story of such a large and complex conspiracy, involving alien technology and government secrets, would not be easy for the public to accept. However, he was ready to fight for the truth, whatever the cost, hoping that by exposing these secrets he could somehow contribute to a future where such mysteries and powers were treated with the responsibility and transparency that humanity deserves. As the weeks passed in the isolated cabin, my health began to decline even more rapidly due to skin cancer, but my determination remained unwavering. Every day I woke up was a reminder that my time was limited and that I needed to make sure the truth didn't die with me. Aware that the publication of the information was imminent, I began preparing one last video, a testament to everything I knew, along with reflections on the importance of keeping humanity informed and protected from the hidden forces that operate beyond public knowledge. This video would be my voice after my death, a last attempt to instigate change and awareness. Meanwhile, the journalist with whom I had contacted informed me about the progress of the investigation. They had managed to confirm the existence of advanced technologies through independent sources within other government agencies and were piecing together a narrative that connected dots from the Roswell incident to the recent discovery at the base. Tensions were rising as the publication date approached, and I knew the repercussions could be immense. Some days I received visits from former colleagues and contacts who had discovered my whereabouts and wanted to offer their support, both moral and physical. They brought news from the outside world, supplies, and sometimes more equipment to help strengthen the cabin's security. It was comforting to know that I wasn't completely alone in my struggle, that there were others who shared the same concern and urgency to get the truth out. On a particularly starry night, one of these visitors, a former colleague who worked at the same base as me, brought back alarming information. She had heard rumors that the project was being reactivated under a new codename, and that new, even more dangerous experiments were being planned. This reinforced the need to act quickly. Together, we devised a way to infiltrate a small drone equipped with cameras into the restricted area of the base to capture updated footage of activities, providing incontrovertible evidence of what was happening. In the days that followed, I carried out the mission with the drone, guiding it through the rugged terrain and avoiding detection by highly sophisticated security sensors. The images captured were shocking. They clearly showed the development of unknown weapons and the presence of other entities that appeared non-human, working side by side with military personnel. Finally, the series of reports began to be published. The revelations caused a turmoil in the media and society. Governments around the world were forced to respond, and there was a public outcry for transparency and oversight of secret projects that could threaten global security. With the truth now in the public eye, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief at having managed to accomplish my mission, sadness at knowing that the shadows we had revealed were just the tip of the iceberg of even deeper secrets. My last days were spent at the cabin, watching the consequences of the revelations unfold across the world. Although my body was weak, my spirit was satisfied, knowing that I had done everything in my power to warn humanity of the dangers hidden in secret. I died not as a man defeated by cancer, but as someone who fought until the end, to bring light to the darkest shadows of human knowledge. In the stillness of my cabin, as the last lights of twilight faded over the horizon, I reflected on the journey I had undertaken. From the moment I discovered the dark secrets held at the military base to the decision to reveal them to the world, every step was guided by a fierce determination to do the right thing, even if it came at the cost of my own safety. The global response to the revelations was mixed. Some denied the evidence, others demanded sweeping reforms to security policies and government transparency. Activist groups and human rights organizations mobilized, inspired by the story it had brought to light, promoting debates and demanding international oversight of technologies that could alter the global balance of power. The last few weeks of my life were marked by a feeling of mission accomplished. The cancer was advancing, but the peace of mind he felt was a balm that soothed the physical pain. I knew I had started something that could not be undone, a wave of questioning and the search for truth and justice that would continue long after I was gone. With the publication of the last part of the series of reports, I asked the journalist responsible to include a final message from me, a kind of call to action for all those who had followed the story from the beginning. It was an appeal not to let the flame of curiosity and the demand for transparency go out. Dear readers and viewers, as we come to the end of this shocking revelation, I invite each of you to reflect on the power of truth and the responsibility we have to protect our society from hidden threats. If this story has given you any new perspective or inspired change in your worldviews, do not let this moment pass without leaving a mark. Please subscribe to the channel to follow more investigations and reports that seek to illuminate the dark corners of power and science. Leave a like if you thought this series made a difference and comment below what you thought of the story and what you learned from it. Your opinion is crucial so that we can continue our work with the rigor and depth that the search for truth requires. I thank everyone who has followed this far and who shares the desire for a fairer and more transparent world. Your voice and your action are the true forces that can shape the future. Keep questioning, keep learning, and above all, keep fighting for a world where knowledge and power serve the common good. I signed the message with my full name, Thomas Joe Iger, for the last time, leaving a legacy of courage and perseverance. My life, although marked by unimaginable challenges, ended with the serenity of someone who knows they did everything they could to make a difference. The echo of my discoveries would resonate for generations, a beacon for all those who dare to face the shadows in search of the light.